So in this video, I say that the one we're working on is for small medium. I'm 165 pounds and I wear a size large, extra large, depending on the brand. If a brand is friendly, they make me a medium. But anyways, so this fits me as a large, extra large. So when you see me in the video say this is for small medium, disregard that. Especially whenever I'm using just regular old acrylic here. This is Red Heart Super Saver in black and it's covered in Merlin hair. Here's how the whole thing looks. And if you never thought a jacket like this was for you, look what it does to your silhouette. It really gives you quite a cute little silhouette. Now, I did not put buttons on this because I never intended to button it. I just wanted it to be one of those kind of chill cardigans that you wear like this. But you can put buttons on it. There's no reason not to. But yeah, I don't have the slimmest figure. As you guys know from my previous video, I don't have the slimmest figure. But a jacket like this somehow slims you up. Okay. I'm not going to show you how to make these with black yarn because that would drive both of us crazy. So I'm just going to show you the pieces that I have made and laid out so that you can see what it is that we are working with here. So I already have all of the pieces made and ready to assemble for you. So what we're going to be doing, and what's really easy about this pattern is all the pieces are made essentially the exact same way except for our front panel. Our front panel is going to be made with some decreasing at some point. And you will need to obviously make 2 of these, okay, that will go together like this. And then we have our back panel, massive back panel. And then our sleeves, of course, folded in half, and they look more like sleeves. And the great thing about this pattern I'm going to show you is that it's all worked in one piece. You don't have to worry about adding the cuff before or after. We're going to work this all in one piece. So you're going to need to go ahead and make 2 arms, 2 front panels, and 1 back. And I will get into exactly how that is done here in just a moment. There's our front panels. Okay, now to show you the actual tutorial, I'm going to be working with this Aran colored yarn. So for this project, you're going to need a worsted weight yarn. I used black, and you're going to need a J or 6mm hook. And I'm going to show you the instructions for small medium as I made mine to fit my mannequin, and my mannequin is like a small extra small. So if you need this to be bigger, add more rows. And then, okay, I'm editing this video for re-upload, and to make it easier for you to understand the garbled mess I just explained, from my shoulder to my hip is 22 inches. This jacket on me, this is just for your own personal reference, if you want to compare my sizes to yours. The jacket sits at the 18-inch mark on me. And bear in mind, my measurements from shoulder to hip is 22, and this is a cropped cardigan, so it sits at 18 inches on me. So if you like the way it looked on me and on my mannequin, then just don't worry about trying to change the size. Just follow all of the instructions, all of the chain counts as I give them. And remember, this will fit a small, medium, large, and the smaller end of extra large. So all the way up to, I would say, a size 16, okay? Like if you were like a size 16 in jeans, for example, it would go all the way up to a size 16. If you wear an 18 or higher, then you would want to go ahead and take your measurement from your shoulder to your hip. And if you want it to be cropped, come back 1, 2, 3, 4 inches from your initial measurement. And if you need it to be broader, then just keep adding rows and holding it up to you before we get to the part where we're going to decrease for the V-neck. Because as we continue to work rows in or rows out, that's going to be the part that covers your shoulder. So from your shoulder into your collarbone, and then we start working our decreases. Hopefully that helped clarify. But again, if you fall within the small to smaller size of extra large, again about a size 16, US size 16, then don't worry about changing the measurements at all, because this will fit you as long as you use a number 4 worsted weight or Aran weight and the 6mm hook. This will work out for you. You're going to chain 66. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. With your 6mm hook, chain 66. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'll be back whenever I have 60 more. Okay, now that we have our 66 chains, you're going to need stitch markers for this. Maybe just 1 stitch marker. I used 2. Okay. Working in the back bump, start in the second back bump from the hook and work 8 slip stitches in the next 8 chains. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me zoom you down a little bit. 7 and 8. Now, in that front loop only of your 8th slip stitch, put your stitch marker. Yarn over and start working the remaining chains as a half double crochet, all the way to the end. I will meet back up with you when we make it all the way to the end. Okay, I have made it to my last chain. We chain 1, turn, yarn over, and in the very first stitch, our back loop only. And here we have our 2 loops. This is our front loop. Right back here is our back loop. You're going to work your first half double crochet. Now, if you're going to make this in black like I did, that's why I used the second stitch marker. And in that front loop only of that first half double crochet, you'll want to put your stitch marker, because with black, it was really hard for me to see. And there is my microwave. Okay, so in every back loop, work a half double crochet until you get down to your stitch marker. Once you do get to your stitch marker, you will work starting in the back loop, well, only working in the back loop of your slip stitches, and work 8 back loop only slip stitches. I will meet you when we get down to this point. Okay, so I worked my last half double crochet in the back loop only. I've made it to my stitch marker here. So we just take the stitch marker out, and in that back loop of that slip stitch, we work a slip stitch. And then I immediately put my stitch marker back into the front loop only of that stitch, because when we come back around, we'll be working in its front loop only now, but it'll be back loop only whenever we turn our work. Okay, then we work the next, these 8 stitches, these 8 slip stitches as 8 slip stitches. And I really like working the cuffs this way, because this is why we aren't going to have to do any extra work of adding them later or before, because we're just adding them as we go. Chain 1 and turn, and immediately into that first back loop only of that first slip stitch, we start working our slip stitches again, all in the back loop only. And there should always be a total of 8 of them. And here we go. Back loop only, and then I put it back. And the reason I use a stitch marker here is because it can be a little bit confusing as you go as to where is your slip stitch start and where is your last half double crochet. It can be a little confusing. So resume working your back loop only half double crochets all the way to the end again, and you will do this over and over and over again. By the way, the reason I wanted to show you, or the reason I wanted to tell you you might want to use a stitch marker, is because this stitch twists off to the side, and if you're using black like I did, it is really hard between these 3 bars right here. It's really hard to figure out which is your back loop only. So that's why it helps to use a stitch marker in your last half double crochet if you're going to be working with black. So you're going to want to do this over and over again until you have achieved 7 inches, 7.5 inches. Let me show you. So 7.5 inches, as I have right here. Okay, the instructions I'm about to give, you can totally disregard if you're just gonna make the size from the range small to small extra large. Everyone else, these instructions will apply to you so that you can make it fit you if you need it to be a bit broader. Okay, so for those who need to make the cardigan a bit broader, what you're gonna wanna do is measure from shoulder to shoulder, and that is the measurement you need. That's how many inches in rows you need to continue to work when working your back panel. When working your 2 front panels, that same shoulder to shoulder measurement, subtract 7 inches. Reason that is both front panels are going to have a V-neck. We will be decreasing 3.5 inches on both front panels. That will equal 7 inches. So we're going to change the size of the front, but we want to keep the back panel the same all the way across because it's your back panel. There's no reason to decrease back there. So hopefully that clears things up. Just measure from shoulder to shoulder. That is how many inches worth of rows you need for your back panel. With that same shoulder to shoulder measurement, you're going to work so many inches until you have 3.5 inches left to work, and then you're going to stop and we're going to come back and we're going to start working our decreases. So just for a example, a nice round number would be, say, 20. So if you need 20 inches from shoulder to shoulder, then by the time you have worked up 6.5 inches worth of rows, stop and come back, because then we're going to do 3.5 inches of rows of decreases, and it will be the same for both front panels, but you're going to keep your back panel at a solid 20 inches. Okay, so that's how this piece measures out if you need to change the size. And again, that 20 inches was just an example size, however many inches you need. And if you measure yourself from shoulder to shoulder and you come up with, say, 22.5 inches, then it's up to you if you want to call it 22 inches or 23 inches. But keep it a whole round number regardless of if you have, again, 22.5 inches. Just go with 22 or 23 inches. Okay, so don't worry about how many rows you're working. Worry about how many inches of rows you're working. Once you have gotten to the point of inches that you need, come back and we will start working on these decreases together. Okay, so I only worked up a few rows because this is just a sample piece for the sake of the tutorial. But one thing I want to mention that's very important, it's very important that no matter what inches you need to end on, end at the bottom. If that means you have to add an additional 1/2 inch or subtract an additional 1/2 inch, it's not going to make that big of a deal because we're working with a very stretchy material. It's not going to matter. Just make sure that no matter what, your last row before you're ready to start working up your decreases is at the cuff, at the bottom of your work. At this point, we'll be working with inches again. Take your tape measure and measure from the top of your shoulder seam of your panel, that is, 5 inches exactly, okay? And wherever that 5 inches lands, let me get my stitch markers here. So here is my 5 inches right here. And out just a pinch. Okay. 5 inches right on the seam, right on the seam. So it's going to land me right here at this stitch right here, and then the stitch just behind it. Go ahead and put your stitch marker. Now count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that puts me putting my stitch marker, because my 5 inches ended right on 19 stitches. That has me putting my stitch marker at 20 stitches, okay? The reason you want to count is so you can write that number down and match it for your next panel. So here we go. Now, I should say, if you are making a bigger cardigan, then maybe come down to about 6 inches or 6.5 inches so that you have a little bit deeper of a V-neck. Okay, grab your hook and we're going to work our panel, our row as normal until we get to this stitch marker, the stitch just before the stitch marker. So we start working our back loop only slip stitches. I'm going to do my best to stay in the center of the screen. I am so sorry. I know it is a problem. I am still learning how to film. Oh, there's a hair there. I have a dog. I'm still trying to figure out how to crochet and film and stay in frame because the camera is actually just above my forehead. And so I have to look up. I have to move my whole neck and shoulders up to see it. And unfortunately, that can cause me to not even realize that I am out of frame. And I am so sorry. Okay. Working our half double crochets now. I will come back whenever I get to the point of our stitch marker. Say, I told you wrong. Don't stop at the stitch marker. You're going to stop at your 3rd stitch from the stitch marker. I'm very, very sorry. Stop at your 3rd stitch. So here's your stitch marker and leave your last 2 stitches before the stitch marker unworked. Okay. So here we are. I have only 2 stitches left to work until my stitch marker, and we're going to decrease those 2 stitches. So yarn over, enter the back loop only, and pull up a loop. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, enter the next back loop only, and pull up a loop. Now you have 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 5, and we have just blended. We have just turned 2 half double crochet into 1. Now chain, turn, and we're going to decrease again. So yarn over, oops, back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, next stitch over, back loop only, pull up a loop, and pull through all 5 loops. Now work your next stitch as a regular half double crochet, but let's go ahead and move our stitch marker up to that very first decreased stitch we just worked. Okay, and continue working as normal for the rest of this row and for most of the next row. Once again, go ahead and stop whenever you have 2 stitches unworked before your stitch marker. So here's your stitch marker. When you get to the 3rd stitch back from your stitch marker, make this your last half double crochet, and then we're going to work another decrease. All right, I'll be back whenever we get back up to this stitch marker here where we work the decrease. Okay, here we go. Let's work another decrease. Yarn over, back loop, pull up a loop. Yarn over, go into the next back loop, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 5 loops. Chain 1 and turn, and we do it again. In the first, and then in the next stitch over, yarn over, and start working our half double crochets as we have been. But let's go ahead and move our stitch marker up. So to finish your panels, you're going to keep working your decreases like this, where at the end of every row, just before your stitch marker, your last 2 stitches will get a decrease. Then at the start of every row, your first 2 stitches will get a decrease. Do that for a total of 8 rows, not 8 more rows, 8 rows total. So your first row, and you can put a stitch marker here if you need to, just to help you see, like this is actually your very first row worked. So as you can see, here is the tops of our last regular row, and right where the purple is coming out, that is the start of our very first decrease row. So we have 1, 2, 3, we're about to work 4. So after you're done with this row, work 4 more decrease rows for a grand total of 8. That should give us 3.5 inches of decrease. Now, if it's slightly under 3.5 or slightly over 3.5, don't worry about it. That's going to be perfectly fine. So that'll complete your panels. You know, you'll need to do this twice. That'll complete your panels. How you make your back panel? You're going to make your back panel by working everything that you just did right here minus the decreases. So you remember I said my back measured 22 inches. Okay, cool. So go ahead and work enough rows that equals 22 inches. Okay? And that's how you're going to make your back panel. And then your sleeves is the same way. So for a mannequin, I went with a total of, that's my written pattern. I went with a total of 16 inches across, folded in half because I wanted it to be a puffy, chunky sleeve. So folded in half, it is 7.5 inches. So 7.5 plus 7.5 equals 16. And I did that with 60 chains because I didn't want the cuff to be too far down on the hand. But if you do want a long sleeve that comes over the top of your fingers, I would do like 75 chains or 65 chains, but 75 if you really want a nice long sleeve. This is 60 chains for the sleeve for the small medium. Just measure your arm from like, see where my sleeve is right now? This is a short shirt. You'll want to measure from like there because that's where the shoulder will seam together all the way down to however far down onto your hand you want. And that's how many inches, that's how many chains you'll need to work. But if you're just going to make it look exactly how it looks like on my mannequin, this is 60 chains and you will always do your 8 slip stitches to start. All of them are going to have 8 slip stitches. Everything will start with 8 slip stitches. So that is how you make all the pieces. You'll need to make 2 sleeves, 60 chains. If you're making it my mannequin size, a total of 16 inches across. So when you're done making all of your pieces, your 2 front panels, your 2 sleeves, your back panel, come on back and we will piece this thing together. But I'm also going to show you how to make the Scully applique. Isn't that adorable? It just came to me. Like there are a lot of tutorials on how to make the skull. It was figuring out how to make the crossbones and it just came together so stinking perfect. And I love it so much. So, okay, come back and we will piece the jacket, the cardigan together, and then we will make our skull. Okay, so I moved over to the floor and my dog is going to be supervising. It's still going to be really hard to see because it's black, but Merlin. Okay, so you have your back panel. How we're going to assemble, Merlin, stop. You're going to take your front panel with the decreases and put one piece there like that. And when we sew it together, you will match. You will count and match stitch for stitch, row for row. Okay, here is our other decreased panel with the decrease facing in like this. There we go. And that's how that's going to be pieced together. And then we have our sleeves here. The sleeves are gonna, watch out, Merlin. Sleeves are gonna come off the side like this, sort of, okay. And so, you know, this is gonna give you a little bit of an idea of what we're working with here. And so it's kind of a cropped cardigan, as you can see. Super, super cute. Okay, I think I can sew it together back over on the couch where I have way better light. We are completely overcast today. I have absolutely my back window is open, both my windows are open. I mean, as you can see here, I have huge windows, but look at that. It's just so stinking overcast right now. So this is what we're working with. So I think I can take it back over to the couch and at least show you how we're going to sew it together. We're going to sew it together up here. Then we're going to open this portion up. After we get it sewed together, we're going to open this portion up like this and open up our sleeve. And then we're going to find the center of our sleeve and then sew it like that onto the front panel and the back panel at the same time. We're going to do that to both sides. But let's move our operation back over to the couch and see if I can get it on camera for you better. I wish I had one of those like professional setups like some of these YouTubers have. Okay, see you in a minute. So here I have the back panel. Let's go ahead and grab a front panel so you can see. Here we have our front panel, and you probably are going to see little doggy hairs. I have a shedding dog who needs to be bathed and brushed very badly, and it is a struggle trying to keep up with his dog hair on things that are black. So just ignore the dog hair, please. I'm sorry. Here we have our front panel and our back panel, and we're going to attach them. Now, how many rows of this do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 rows. That's 18, yes, 18 rows here. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I'm going to grab a stitch marker. There we go. And we are, make sure that your decrease is facing the inside and just start sewing it together. Grab your hook. With our yarn joined here on the corner. Again, I am so sorry that it is so dark. Go ahead and with your slip stitch there, go ahead and work your first single crochet after chaining 1. And then try to evenly space out your 18 stitches you're going to need to join. So here we go. That was 1. This is 2. Okay, get this corner stitch here into where the slip stitch is. There we go. So we know it's going to be 18. That's a big old loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over here that I did the first time. I'm going to start with my 18th. Oops, I'm going to start with my 18th stitch right here and work my way out this time. So you do that as well, and then come back whenever you are all done and you are ready to assemble the arms. Okay, so the sun has come out just a little bit. Hopefully that's helping to make this a little bit easier to see. So I have my 2 front panels sewn on. Let's go ahead and do the arms. So here we have our front panel seam. Go ahead and open up everything. See if I can widen this out a little bit. I cannot. Okay. So here you can see on this side, I have my front panel with my decreases, and here is the top of the seam. Right here is where we are going to put the arm. So you will want to fold your arm in half like this. Let's move this out of the way so you can see. We fold the arm in half and we find the center. Make sure that it's folded in half all the way to the cuff. And then we find the center. And for me, the center is going to be right here. So I'm going to get a stitch marker. There we go. That is my center. Okay, let's bring this back. Again, my front panel on this side, back panel over here. Here is the top of my seam. Just like that. And we match. I'm going to do it this way. We match the stitch marker with the seam, just like such. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just clip them together. Get that right in there somehow, work it into the seam, and there we go. Now we will start working. Move all of this to the side a little bit, reline it back up, and we're going to start working from here and then just seam it all the way together to the end. Gosh, I wish I had a better camera set up for you for these bigger projects. I'm so sorry. We're going to seam it all the way to the end, okay? Do that with both sleeves and then come on back. Okay, so here I have my arm sewn on to here's the shoulder seam, so that's all attached. So now what we're going to do is close everything up. So grab your seam, your shoulder seam, and pull it up, and the arm should just close like this. So here is our shoulder seam. Here's where we just attached on both sides. Here is our sleeve. Now we are going to come down to the bottom, bring it all together like this, and attach your yarn. See, here's our sleeve, and there is the bottom of our cardigan, the front panel and back panel holding it together. And you're just going to seam, and you're just going to seam it up to the armpit, and then seam the bottom of the arm shut, and go ahead and weave in your end while you're seaming. Just kind of incorporate it and seam all the way to your sleeve cuff and cut, and do that on both sides. Okay, losing sun again, so really quickly I'm going to go over this. The next thing we have to work on before we are done, we need to do 1 row of single crochet. Here I am at the bottom of the cardigan. We're going to do 1 row of single crochet all the way up, even up across the decreases and up around the back of the neckline, all the way down to the other side. Okay, just 1 row of single crochet. And we're not going to worry about front loop or back loop. Just go into your stitch and make regular single crochets. Make them evenly spaced. And again, I like to leave a long tail so I can weave in a long tail as I go. But make sure that they are evenly spaced as possible, and then come on back. So in that same stitch I just slip stitched into, and I'm going to make sure to incorporate my tail. Going to work a single crochet, and then work a single crochet in every single stitch all the way around the entire inside hem, making sure to incorporate my tail all along the way. Here we go. Now it's easy until we get up to our decrease. Our decrease is where you have to really try hard to just space them. Here we go. Decrease, you have to try really hard to space them out as evenly as possible. Okay, I will meet back up with you guys whenever we get all the way around the entire thing to the other side. So I finished my first row of single crochet, and then I cut and I weaved in my end. Then I came back over, reattached, and am now working 1 more row of single crochet. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way instead of simply chaining 1 and turning is because I don't want that single crochet look on my inside hem. I want this more streamlined, straight look that you can see here, where 2 single crochets are stacked on top of each other, but they don't look like the front back traditional single crochet look. This is way more clean and streamlined looking. So this is entirely optional. You do not have to do this, but you can do this, and you can do this as many times as you want. But yes, that is what I am doing. And so I am just about halfway done working that out now. So you can see here is my first row of single crochet, and here is my second row of single crochet stacked on top. And I really believe it just creates a really nice, clean look. I've always loved the look of not chaining and turning if you want your single crochets to look different, if you want any of your work to look different. It's extra work, but if you're not going to be making like a whole blanket that way, it's worth doing, in my opinion. So this is completely optional. I would opt for it if I were you, because it just creates a really nice, clean look. Okay, so 3.5 years ago, I didn't quite know how to sign off, so this is me officially signing off on this tutorial 3.5 years later, better late than never. Again, stay tuned for the Scully applique tutorial that will come up in just a couple of days, but that'll give you plenty of time to start working on this. All right, guys, thanks so much. Be sure to subscribe and check out my newer content, as it's totally different from my older content. On this channel, it is called Just Vintage Crochet, but I decided to consolidate my old channel, which were my designs, with this vintage channel. So now we are Just Vintage Crochet Plus. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.